down and get a chance to sit down and discuss your character. It's going to be interesting. We've heard a little bit about him through Thananar's player, Jen. So,
well, that makes getting the jump on me then. So,
but before we jump into him, let's talk a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You don't have to get super detailed or reveal any specific details, but give us a bit about your history.
As a player,
player, person, whatever you want.
Thing, got it. Yeah, no. So I'm Evan. I'm just kind of I don't know how folks might describe me, but I hope for something like easygoing and just looking for the best in folks. And outdoorsy things, cycling and hiking. Helps me get away from the day job at the computer here, and enjoy being owned by a cat. And definitely old fashions, I'd say, would be the way to go. It's a 30,000-foot take on things.
All right. So how did you first get into role playing? Like when and what was the?
Well, I think I got into role playing D&D specifically with actually the game group that we had there in Fredericksburg. So with who all was it? Matt and a couple other folks. Just having like an open table off of oh goodness, I can't remember. It was something that was public facing, just looking for folks to come out and have a bit of fun at like a board game night or something. Do you remember what it was?
It was a meetup group.
It was a meetup group. Thank you.
Yep.
And just from there, getting talked into trying out D&D and slipping into a solid game of Strahd that I think it ran for like at least a year, maybe a year and a half, something like that.
Yep.
And then some. I'd say that was my first real taste of D&D there. That was a ton of fun. Go ahead.
I was just saying I remember that it was interesting watching you learn the game. So
literally from the ground up and just having like so much adrenaline. I think I've just it's somewhere around here. I was cleaning out old notes, but I've stumbled across literally the map from that game, and then like character notes, and there's honestly like a decision tree that was drawn out for like, am I fighting undead? Are they hunters marked? Because I had so much adrenaline going through my system, I couldn't do the simple addition for, did I hit or not? How much damage am I dealing to these things? Just because the adrenaline was so high while playing those games, just locking up and forgetting how to do simple stuff. I just stumbled across that little the other day. It was so much fun to have a bit of nostalgia and look back on that. So.
But I mean, so what is it about role playing that you like? Like, what pulls you into the hobby?
Sure. So, like, just doing a little bit of reading. I know different folks get different things out of it. Either mechanically getting a lot of enjoyment or like rewards based off of like conquest and adventure and stuff. But like I'd say me personally, like I've really just the fully interactive like storytelling, like it's like a video game, but it's only limited by your imagination and the folks you're playing with for like how far you can stretch and get creative with things. That's incredible. Being able to like, I guess, slip into the shoes of someone else and drive them around for sometimes like years at a time. Essentially, it feels like a bit like acting, but without all the problems of having an audience sitting there watching you. And the fiddly math bits, keep my analytical mind busy. Give it something to do there while I'm enjoying the game stuff. I guess I'd say as a highlight, like I live for critical failures and seeing where that takes us. Like the best moments and memories. So I'd
Yeah,
top off with that.
yeah, I can definitely see that with you. Um, so, without going into anything about your character yet, too much,
Mhm.
about the details, but what race and class combination did you pick, and why did that appeal to you? Why is that what you wanted to play in this?
I'd say like by default, I've always leaned towards like a ranger to play. Um, just the mechanics of the character and the kind of personalities that lend towards. And I've never had a chance to play a Horizon Walker Ranger before. It just hasn't come up in gameplay or like as a uh, just something I've had a chance to take around for a test drive. So like a long running campaign with a chance to see mechanically what that might open up um, for story and interesting features and stuff. It seemed to pair really nicely with this sort of setting. Um, I'm gonna mix up the naming on that between Horizon Walker and Planeswalker, but yeah, I've always wanted to take that for a test drive. And then the setting had a custom dwarf, Arun, if I'm not murdering the pronunciation on that. Essentially, water dwarf, amphibious dwarves. Amazing, yes, incredible. Of course, I want to take that out and have some fun with it. So, little bit of something known and a good bit of something unknown as far as things I've tried before.
Yeah. All right. So, are there any characteristics and parts of you that you're putting into the character, or where you're the same?
Sure, I think I mentioned before. I can identify. I try to see the best in people, like probably to a fault almost. Bit of personality trait there, I guess, and desire to get out and see more of the world. Like this guy's set up to, he's been at home doing the family business, doing It's a Wonderful Life there in his hometown for 30 years, and it's just time to he's finally decide to break with tradition, which he still values a lot, and go forth into the world and try to see more of it or make a name for himself. And I don't know so much about making a name for myself, but definitely the seeing more of the world and getting out there part, which and more of an outdoorsy leaning to that. So I don't know. Just ranger as like an archetype, I'd say is that the venues that lend themselves to a ranger running around in is just something that speaks to me. So
Okay. Well,
I'd say
what
I
about?
built a lot. Go ahead.
No, you finish.
No, it's about what thought I had. Go ahead.
All right. What what are you putting into the character that's totally different from you? That's going to make you stretch a bit in playing.
Certainly. Well, I'm not gregarious, extroverted, loud, um, boisterous as like a personality myself. And this character is written to be that, essentially almost like a loud Italian man, but with a Canadian accent, which is also something I am not. So with a bit of practice, it seems to be coming out of the woodwork, so to speak. Uh,
I'm going to let you
Working
in
out a little bit.
on a little amusement that I have with that. Now that
Hmm.
we've set that sea dwarves, at least I can't decide if it's all dwarves or if it's just sea dwarves, but having a Canadian accent, the creator of the world, they're Canadian.
Hmm.
So I've already told him, I'm like, I just want to prepare you for very bad, very bad. And my family's Canadian, so I know that. So for me, when you're doing it, I'm just over here like, don't laugh, don't laugh at him. It's don't it you're gonna ruin it. It's
Oh,
too great. So
we're gonna
yeah,
have like
so
a like an FBI warning. It's like, we apologize in advance for all those of Canadian descent for what about to take place. Oh
Yep.
no. Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
so just remember every once in a while, look at the camera and say, "I'm sorry, Sean." So, all right. Um, so, all right. Well, then, now to the character. What's his name? Well, is it a
Sure.
he? First off, he,
It is a
she.
he. It is
Okay.
a he. Name is Bataer Tritonis. Um, strong sea dwarf name. It's about 33 years old. You want me to just roll into it a little bit?
Yeah. The next question is going to be to give a description, both physical and personality-wise.
Sure. So, rolling off of what I am not, loud, boisterous, um, almost exuberantly happy, just as like a state of existence. I'd say, I had a whole physical description lined up here, but essentially, auburn hair and beard, which countersets with the blue skin. I think almost like Blue Man Group, but not as reflective there on the skin there. Um, the shiny armor of Orichalcum or Orichalcum. I apologize.
Or a
Um,
Carolyn. Yep.
Orichalcum, and finally
Actually, I was
topped
saying it
with
wrong too, but yeah.
a seagrass cloak there that's coming together. So definitely a sight. Definitely turning heads. Probably has the ability to hide in like a social setting, like some sort of like -30 modifier or whatever, between shiny things and having completely different skin tone and what have you. Uh, physically very interesting to look at. I'd say finish off with a messenger bag and massive crossbow.
So you talk about your character being sort of boisterous and energetic, everything. Does he get that from his family? What's his family like? Who's still around?
Yeah, definitely. So he does get that from his family. His entire family is very loud and um, full of life, extroverted. Definitely almost has like a fiery approach to conflict resolution, where and he's very close to his family. Like he's very much like a tradition and like family oriented sort of guy. And I'd say um, where a lot of his like morality and his like the fabric that makes up what he is comes from, which is definitely different from a lot of the other characters I usually run. It's usually tend towards like some sort of edgy, rejection of the system, or pushing back from family and tradition and like striking out to, self-discovery or what have you, some form of like discovery of agency. And no, this guy's just he's happy, the family's functional. If it might not appear at first glance, but it's functional in its own way, loving, and it's definitely directly contributed to like a lot of the skills and like points of view he's coming from, you know working the family business there for like 32 years or so, and you know not a bad gig, but time for him to move on and do something else that he wants to do. Still close to all of them. You did ask me. Yeah,
Mhm.
he's still got a mother, a father. He has had 5 siblings there. Um, he's a middle child, and kind of a family figure, if you will, goes by Uncle Kerfak, who imparted a lot of wisdom and whatnot on him. So yeah,
Okay.
fairly close to him. Yeah.
Very very much counter to the typical D&D character. Everybody's got a "oh woe is me" backstory. Um, yeah. So part of what the fun I've had with doing Vodari, because there's so much that Sean created and developed, but most of it he made a very open world for us to play in, and so that type of lifestyle that is not typical of what we think of as dwarves. Is that the norm for sea dwarves, or is that your family different than most of them?
I think I heard you asking about personality as opposed to like occupation and amount of travel. Did I get that right?
No, no. So with most, typically when we think of dwarves in D&D, they're very
Hmm.
taciturn and
Hmm.
stoic and reserved. And
Hmm.
the way you described your family is very much the opposite of that, which is cool. Um, with Vodari, I've enjoyed letting you guys help world build because Sean left
Hmm.
so much of
Hmm.
it for us to fill in. So what I was wondering is that typical of sea dwarves, or is that just your family that is that way?
It's interesting, and I have gone back and forth on it. I think um, I think I'd argue that sea dwarves in general lean towards that um, as a sort of cultural divergence after being like cut off from the rest
Yeah.
of the clans for a while, and like just kind of forming inward and just looking to themselves and kind of you know finding joy in the little things, if you will, just like as like tight knit communities, uh, and moving more towards what I'd say we'd consider like hobbits as far as like a mentality and like happiness to life, like leaning more towards that. And then I'd say my family just takes it up to 11. So, you know, not everyone is just gregarious, over the top, incredibly happy. Something about traveling and seeing and doing and getting out as much as my family has is um, certainly, it's not always been happy, fun times on the road, um, but something about the lifestyle lends them to just um, a happy outlook on life, even for sea dwarves.
Yeah. Okay.
So
And,
leaning into it, if you will.
yeah. And by the way, Tolkien Estate, do not try and come after us for saying the word hobbit. Oh,
Halflings.
yes, halflings. Halflings. They're no relation at all. Uh, so for your character, we talked about why the race and class was you chose them. Is there something about the class that's important to the character, like being this Horizon Walker?
So I don't think it's not a label he wears. I'd say I've more like assembled like backgrounds and occupations that kind of build up an explanation for the skill set he has, both his time in the Deep Rangers, something I spun up for a protective force at the bounds of the Sea Dwarf civilization there in the deep. Um, some of what Uncle Kerfak has experienced and has very much tried to latch on to any of the kids that would listen and make an impression upon them of some of what he's come across and the importance of being prepared for it, to his family's occupation, which is uh, essentially well, what I jot down here, something like oh, I had something decent, but like intergalactic wagons east, uh, caravan guides to cross this rather dangerous world, and taking a shortcut by popping into a different plane of existence or two to very much shorten the trip and avoid a lot of the dangers of the open ocean there and months of sea travel. So the planeswalking part of that title there purely coming from the family business and the knowledge that's handed down generation to generation. Um, Not all the families is explicitly tied to that. Extended families off somewhere else in the world with that knowledge, doing esoteric or adventure things with it. It's a very contentious bunch outside of the immediate family, so we don't know them all that well. But they're out there doing their thing as well. Yeah, I'd say that's more of an amalgamation of character traits as opposed to a badge of honor or a explicit tie to a deity or other things that might really a character might really take a shine to about their job title.
All right. So with the way we developed the characters, I did that web of connections. So everybody knew somebody, and both in two directions. Like you knew someone and someone knew you, and it built this interlocking web without necessarily going into a lot of other people's backstories. Who is your character? Who is Bataer connected to, and how?
Cool.
In his
So
own story.
Bataer is pretty tightly coupled to Thananar there, Jen's character, as a childhood friend since goodness, like age 12 or something. From trips over to that part of the world as part of the caravan, and dropping in maybe once or twice a year, and essentially short spurts at a time, growing up together and forming a tight bond. I'd say really the other one would be when what was it? Just hitting teenager years and that brilliant level of decision making that comes with it at like 13 years old. Making a wrong left turn out of Narnia, as I like to put it, popping out of one of the dimensions there, and instead of being at was it about the 11? Instead of being at like the 11 o'clock position there on the world map, where the caravan should be popping out, Bataer by himself running ahead, pops out more at like the 9 o'clock position on the world map, into the middle of nowhere, no idea where, and really bumping into Caleb's character there, Sunset Arrow, and having a whole little lost kid return policy arc to work out there. And so, definitely influenced Bataer having had that experience and much more awareness and I guess you could say exposure to tabaxi in the world than he might otherwise have. So
yeah, probably not too much of that under the water. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Does Bataer have any quirks, weird behavior, tics, or something? Not things that he necessarily explains to people. He just sort of does, but other people are like,
Well, all right. Let's just assume the other player characters don't watch this one here. But smiling too much, a little too talkative for a scout / sneaky person. Its own good. Just really social, amicable person. I can't imagine that ever coming back to bite him in the butt there. Trying to sneak around the bush or whatever. And then, just a habit of sniffing things and people on the down low. Just nothing, terribly major, or might come back to bite him there either. Smells are interesting, man. He's been underwater a lot.
So I have to ask. You said sniffing, so literally he smells people.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Okay.
Call it a weird quirk from childhood. Not going for a creepy aspect here, but probably real weird if anyone catches on to that shit.
Right, and that's sort of the point. It's one of those things where other people might be like, "What?" But it's just something you do, and you go on, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that'll be fun.
Don't know about him. He smells funny.
Again, Sean, so sorry. So tell us one story arc you would like to see separate from the story that we're telling as a group that I'm writing for all of you as the major pieces. What's a personal story arc that you'd like to see Bataer experience?
Oh, that's interesting. Because a lot of them are under wraps, and I can't really talk about them.
And it may be one you can't answer. Maybe you can't answer this question. That's fine.
The general story arc of the characters bonding together and stuff, I think it still counts to say like a coming of age, as you do at 32 years old as a dwarf to really start hitting your own stride and um, going after the adventurous stories his oldest brother always talked about and probably threw a ton of embellishment on it, and wanting to go out and make his own, and seeing how he might grow up, and if he still stays the same boisterous, incredibly happy person. I like to see how he turns out. Um, Hitting a bit of reality there, and what just how that might affect him,
Okay.
how he approaches it.
So been throwing at everybody a wild card question. So something you've had no time to prepare for. So if you could add one thing to Vodari, because you don't know it exists, it may already be there, but you don't know it exists, or you don't know anything about something. Is there something you'd love to see added to Vodari as a setting?
That's
Bigger than
interesting.
Bataer, not just because it's your character, like just
Sure. Yeah. Airships have always been intriguing as a mechanic. That might already be in there. We've got some sort of steampunky folks running around somewhere in the world. Something to add to Vodari. There's this massive question mark on the map that sits right at the center of the damn map about what is exactly there at the heart of the storm. And I'm trying to imagine what it could possibly be. And certainly the history lends itself to not just the prior civilizations on the continent, but like some like super ancients, like a super civilization that existed before. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about that.
Oh no, you can feel free. It's
in the notes. All right, it's in the broad notes. I would find it interesting if the people in the current times have it wrong, the reason for a massive storm in the middle of an archipelago to exist. Certainly there was a cataclysm, but the reason behind it, it's interesting how often major cataclysms in history get written down into mythology and explained in that sort of way. Wouldn't it be interesting if someone maybe dug up something they shouldn't have as a reason for the world being the way it is today? And it has been explained in myth and legend, but is that really what happened?
Yeah, because everybody looks at the map and just sees. For those of you who aren't familiar with Vodari, it's a ring of islands, and right in the middle is a massive hurricane that has lasted for over 800 years called Vesi's Rage. And Vesi is the primary evil god in the campaign. And all that's really known, there was a supercontinent, and then the gods' war happened, something with conflict of the gods, and most of the continent sank, everything shifted and moved, and it led to the world of today. So yeah, I can guarantee you will get some answers of what is in Vesi's Rage, and some of what came from before. That is definitely a part of the mystery of the story I'm telling. So
that's my random 2 cents. The hubris of man always makes for good storytelling, and there's a bit of that with the dwarves hanging open there, over in the mountains, and what else might have occurred on a larger scale. So
yeah, the mountain dwarves have the night war, and they won't talk to anybody about it. All we know is something's trying to come up from below, and they've been fighting it for hundreds of years. So who knows? So all right, and the last one that I'm gonna do is turn it over to you for a question. Is there anything you've wanted to ask me about the world, about your character, about the game? I'm not promising that my answer won't be spoilers, but is there anything you've been wanting to ask?
What is the thing you are most proud of, as far as the world building, taking the existing setting and putting the fast forward button on a couple years for structuring things out the way they are today?
So the biggest thing I wanted to do was show that there is change and progress, but I didn't want to change the feel of the world. So everything I've done has been with an eye towards Zolan, for example. Zolan now has flat out steamships. They've discovered Firestone, which it's coal, but they call it Firestone. And so now they have these steam powered ships. And so they can go farther. It's not necessarily go faster, but they can go farther than these other things. But how then to keep the feel of Zolan, which is very resource demanding, and they're intense about experimenting and this colonizing, trying to get more things so they can develop more. I didn't want to change the feel of any of that. And so I found a really nice conceit and a way to do it. And I'm going through and telling all these 100-year stories. But if you pay attention to the lore, at the end of the 100 years, the feel and the basic ideas really didn't change, even though there's a ton of new detail. I've enjoyed that. And it's been a challenge. So, the other thing I've enjoyed with this is also involving you guys. This is one of the biggest times I've involved players in world building, and you've all done an outstanding job, and you've given me so much to work with. So,
well, I got to say, as far as someone putting effort into setting up the campaign and groundwork with characters and stuff, certainly a thorough, solid take into the character development. I'd say easily a more solid rounding out than I've started with before. So thank you for the effort put in to set this thing up.
All right. Well, on that note, I'm going to go off screen and blush, but I'm going to say thank you, Evan. It's been a great pleasure talking to you about this, and really looking forward to seeing where we go with Bataer.
Thank you, Heath.